Hey folks, DIY Dan here, and today we're going to be working on my 2011 Honda Odyssey EXL without the nav. I've got about a year or so ago, I had to replace some steering components, the tie rod end, and the hub, which included the bearing. It's all one assembly, the wheel hub and bearing that go into the knuckle. Well, the story that you don't use cheap parts, here we are a year and a half later having to replace it. So I bought a Honda OEM wheel hub, and I also bought an axle nut because you're going to have to take the old axle nut off, and you should always replace the axle nut with a new one. So I bought an axle nut and the wheel hub, and that's what we're going to do today. So I'll show you how I diagnosed the problem. Originally we heard a whoop 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 sound, I did, from the passenger side front wheel, and we're diagnosing it, realized that's what the problem was. So we'll show you how we figured that out and how we're going to fix it. Hopefully it'll go nice and smooth today. So let's get started. Alright, so this is the driver's side. This is actually the good side, and I want to show you the difference. So when you want to check your ball joints, your upper control arms, bushings and all that stuff, or not your bushings, but your ball joints, a test is to take the wheel and see if there's any movement. Now in my case, this is the driver's side. Like I said, this is the good side. So you grab it at 9 and 3, and you go back and forth. It's off the ground. It's on jack stands. Be safe. I've got a jack there for safety. So there should be no movement. Now this is movement of this. This is different. This is the steering wheel movement. That's not the movement. You should be able to do this back and forth. There'd be no movement. Then you go 12 and 6. Again, make sure it's safely jacked up because you're putting your hand up underneath the tire. You do back and forth. There's no movement there. Sometimes you can even do 10 and 4 if you want. And do the other two, 2 and, what is that, 7? There's no movement. That's exactly what it should be like. That's a good hub, good bearing, good ball joints even. If you had movement, you could look behind and check out the ball joints and see if there's movement there, or if there's movement in the upper control arm, or anything like that. There's no movement in there. I've already checked this side. So now let's go look at the passenger side and see the difference and see how I diagnosed what the problem was. Okay, here we are on the passenger side. Again, this is the passenger side front. Now what I noticed, you saw on the driver's side how that was nice and stiff and didn't move. Now this is, again, 9 and 3 we're grabbing. I don't even know, you might be able to hear that. It's loose, you can definitely feel it. Going at 12 and 6, you probably can really hear that. You notice you didn't hear that on the other side. And even, it doesn't matter what angle you grab this at. So that is a hub. Now, what I did, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, we'll show you maybe when the wheel's off. You probably can't see in there. We'll show you when the wheel's off, but I checked the ball joints from underneath while I was moving it, and there was no movement at all on any of the ball joints. That's how I knew it was a hub. Plus I knew we replaced it with a cheap part last time. So let's get the wheel off. I'm going to do that off camera because you should know how to take a wheel off by now. And we'll get started with everything else. So let's get to work. Alright, so what we're going to do first, obviously I've taken the wheel off, the brake caliper and caliper bracket, the rotor. That's going to come off once we get the brake off. But we got to release the brake line here, and then we'll take off the 2 bolts that hold the whole assembly. You don't need to take apart this and then this because we're not doing a brake job, so you can leave the whole assembly together. We're going to hang it on this hook here just to get it out of the way. So this nut right here, or this fastener, is a 12 millimeter, so we'll get that off first. Alright, that just comes right off. Now your brake line's free. And we'll switch to our 19 millimeter, which is what we're going to need to get the caliper bracket off. Alright, I got the big gun out. Let's see if we can get this off with this. Ah, yes. There we go. There's our prize. Oh. There's number 2. Gotta leave it to the big guy, I guess. Alright. So, these brakes have been used recently, so we've got to separate them from... Sorry you got my big head in the picture, but it's alright. You'll get over it. Just have to compress the piston a little bit. There we go. It'll come right off. And then we'll just hang it on the hook here. Just to get it out of the way. And there we go. Done. Now, most rotors don't have this screw here, but this one does. Not a big deal. If you lose the screw, it's okay. It's not necessary, as the wheel generally holds it on. But I put it back on because I have it. If I ever lose it, then I'll replace it. There we go. So, get it someplace safe. So this is the hub. This is what I'm talking about. Even like this, I can move it. You see that movement? That's no bueno. This should not move at all. There's absolutely no motion in gosh, I forgot what I'm talking about here. The tie rod in the down here. There's a ball joint, which there's no motion either. But you can hear that. That is in no way, shape, or form good to be hearing right now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get I make a slide hammer, and we're going to get that, and we're going to attach it to this, and we're going to, well, after we remove that axle bolt there, and we're going to try to get the hub off. So we'll get set up with the slide hammer, and we'll see if we can get this sucker off the easy way. Okay, so here we are. First we're going to take these bolts out, and just to show you, see, even with the wheel off, we should not be able to move this hub like this at all. You check your ball joints. I don't know if it's in the frame or not. There's ball joints here. It doesn't move, so that's how we know. So these are 17 millimeter. So take those out, and they're right here on the side of the knuckle. Helps to have the switch all the way over. Alright. 1. 2. And they're just the same on the other side, so don't worry about not being able to see it. The only difference is there's a stabilizer link in the way. For me, I might have to do this by hand because I don't want to strip the nut out. There's one. Maybe I can get the other one. Last thing you want to do is round off a fastener. Alright. Let's find a shorter one. Try with a shorter one and see if we can get it. Just go all caveman on it and do it by hand. In fact, let's just do that. Alright, had to break it loose with this because I just didn't have the room for the impact gun. So I'm just going to finish it by hand here. Hope for the best. There we go. Alright. Sometimes you just got to use your own muscle instead of mechanical muscle. Alright, there's 3. And this one's already loose. Be careful of this boot. This is your CV axle boot. If you damage that in any way, you're going to end up having to replace your whole axle. And that's expensive. But if you like spending money on parts and doing unnecessary work, then please, by all means. Alright, so now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to try to get this axle nut off. So, we'll get you repositioned here. We're just going to go live. My cameraman's going to help me with this. Make sure it's lined up.
I do.
And line it up. Be able to get all this for me, sir. Sorry about all the jiggling. Hopefully we're not making you sick.
Jiggly wiggly piggly.
Alright, so this is your axle nut. As you can see, it's indented in to keep it from coming loose. If you've got a super powerful air tool, you probably could just muscle through that. Mine is not super powerful, so what I'm going to do is find my tool, which should have been over here, but that's my fault they're not here, so you all wait right there. Alright, here we go. All I'm going to do is just knock this dent right back out again. So that should make it a little easier to get the nut off. If I can, in fact, do that. This screwdriver might be too small for this job. Yep, we're going to have to just bend the tip. Cool. I just broke it off. That's even better. So, get a better screwdriver when you're going to do this. In the meantime, now that that's pretty much, that's out a little better, we're going to try it. This is a 36 millimeter right here. I had to buy it. I didn't own one. It cost me about a little over $20 for it, about $22 with tax. Hopefully we'll have the beams to get it off. And I'm going to use this breaker bar solely to keep the rotor from spinning. And let's see if we can get this sucker off. Alright. Get that piece of screwdriver out of there also. So there you go, that's the axle nut. Well, tip of the screwdriver out. Now, put it back on just a little bit. So we want to make sure there we go. Make sure the axle is loose from the hub. Which it is. It moved a little bit, so that's what we need to make sure of. Alright, so the axle moved in. Perfect. So now, sometimes these things will come loose on their own. I didn't think it was going to, even though we don't live in the Rust Belt. There's a possibility it could have come loose on its own, but that's why we got the slide hammer. So we're going to reposition the camera so you can see that, and we'll get started on that. Alright, so this is a slide hammer. It's a part number 17031. It's a EverTough. I've got the loaning. It's been loaned to me by an auto parts store. Most auto parts stores have a loaner tool program. This tool normally to buy is like I've seen it as low as $109 and as high as $150. It's just the tool. And I also had to borrow the attachment because we had to borrow it. So we're going to use this. It's a 5-pound slide hammer, and this is what we're going to use. Again, the part number is 67030. It's the same brand, EverTough. Again, I'm just borrowing this. I'm going to return it back to the local auto parts store when I'm done with it. It cost me about $75 to borrow it. Now, everybody's tool loan service is different, so check yours. So we're going to take this. It's designed to go right on there. You just screw this in there. First, I'm getting ahead of myself. The way to do that, the smart thing would be put the lug nuts on. They don't have to be on super tight. It'll be alright. Now we can get this sucker on. We want to get it in there, but we don't want to go too far in because we'll start pushing up against the axle. And we're not removing the axle. We are removing the hub assembly. So that's far enough. That's just before the axle. Now what we're going to do is pray that this will come off relatively easily. And all you're going to do is you're going to take it and you're going to, until it comes out. See how it goes. Yay, there we go. Success. Alright. Whew. Took a little more work than I was anticipating, but looks good. So, next, what we're going to do, I don't know, cameraman, come in here, we're just going to clean up around here. Get some of that rusty stuff out there, and all I'm going to do is take this sandpaper, go around the edges. That nice, just taking off surface rust. I want to take off material. Alright, that's good enough for government work. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lube it up, and both here and on here, and the splines on the axle here, and then we'll put the new one in, and hopefully we'll be able to button this job up. Alright, we've got it all cleaned up. I've got anti-seize on it. You can put your favorite oil, whatever you want to put on there. Part of it's to help protect for rust, and part of it's to help go on better. So make sure when you get done with your sanding and stuff, your axle's not pushed out like that. You want to seat it in there properly before you put it on there. So this is the part number for the hub. There you go. Genuine Honda part. Alright, and then this is the part number for the axle nut. In this nice bag. Fancy.
Hi. hit the knife.
So, this is the new hub. It should pretty much match this. Remember, this is a replacement, so that's why the bolts are different, but everything looks the same. Looks the same on the back side. So we're good to go. So we can put this new one in. Ooh. Want to make sure your splines line up on your axle. There we go. And of course you want to make sure these holes line up. They only go in one way like that, and this should slide right in. As close to that as you can. Go. And now we'll put some anti-seize on these bolts. Again, it's optional. I think they're okay. They came out all right. So. There we go. Had a clamp for the axle in the way. To help line it up, I'm going to start a bolt in there. That'll keep the rest of the unit turning. There we go. Perfect. I'm going to just do it with the ratchet first. Find my ratchet. There it is. Again, these are 17, so switch it over to tighty, righty-tighty. I'll start at the bottom here. Draw it in a little. Come up to this top diagonal one. Draw it in a little. Bottom one. Bottom one down here. That one's at the top. I think at the top. And then just keep going that star pattern, crisscross pattern, I mean. Alright. Gonna get them hand tight, and then we'll torque them to factory specs. Find out what that is. Alright, for those of you astute watchers, you probably saw that I had forgotten to put the dust shield on the first time. So off camera I went and took it off and put the dust shield on. If you didn't notice, shame on you, you should have seen that. You should be professionals. So I actually ended up having to use a slide hammer to get it out, just to loosen it enough, which was not nearly as hard as getting the old one out. Part of that is because of the NACs, part of that is because I just put it in. Anyway, I fixed my error. I apologize for that. Don't do that. Put your dust shield back on. It's not critical, but it helps. So now we're going to do the axle nut. So I'm going to turn this up this way. As you can see, it turns freely. I want to make sure there's nothing binding or hitting And then we're just going to put this on. You always want to start these by hand. The last thing you want to do is cross thread this axle nut, because, and then if you want, you can grab it in the back and pull it and make sure it's all the way in, which it is. And then we can just zip it on. Make sure we're going the right direction here. Alright, I'm just tightening it down with this. Gets torqued to 181 pound-feet. My torque wrench only goes up to 150, so I'm going to have to guess after that where 181 is. So forgive me, torque spec Nazis, but I'm going to do the best I can. So use my breaker bar in here to stop the rotation. Wow, look at that, it's already at 150. Man, I'm good. So what I'm going to do from there, just give it a little bit more. See if I can do this with one hand here. That's why you watch this channel, for all this professionalness you're seeing right now. Where am I going here? That's not going to work. Alright, we'll just use the torque wrench. I'll get it tight enough with the torque wrench. I'll call that good. Now, dent this in. So I use a chisel. You can use a good flathead if you want. And just going to dent it in right there. Of course, you need to actually hit where it goes. There we go. That sucker won't go anywhere now. Alright, now we're going to put the brakes back on. There's my little gun here. I'm going to get my onyx. Put it in the right thing here. This is going to be my 19. Where's my 19? 17. There's the 19. Would really help the car stop. So, let's put the rotor back on. Try to line up the screw hole. This bolt back in, it's in your, as a reminder, 12mm Alright, got the wheel back on. As you can see, no motion whatsoever. No noise. Nothing. Problem solved. Alright, so we've done everything. We've torqued our lug nuts factory spec. In this case, it's 95 pound-feet. In case you're wondering, there's 157, 680, 678 on the clock. Of course, now when I don't want anybody to text me, I get text messages. So now we're just going to take it for a quick spin around the neighborhood and make sure it sounds okay, make sure there's no new noises that we didn't have last time, and then this job will be done. Alright, let's go. Roll the windows down so you can make sure I don't hear anything. Hopefully the wind noise won't be too bad. So far I don't hear anything wrong. Sounds kind of quiet. This is what it should. Before sounded like the wheel was wobbling, which it probably was doing. Which of course would wear out your tires after a while. Yep. Feels nice and stable. I think we're gonna be good. So there you go, folks. That's how you replace your wheel hub and bearing assembly on a 2011 Honda Odyssey. I'm sure it probably meets the specs for a number of different models. You'll have to look that up yourself. Sorry, I didn't look that up for you, but anything that's probably got the same kind of wheelbase probably uses the same kind of wheel hub and procedure. So just remember to get your right tools. You're probably going to need a slide hammer, so you can rent that from or borrow it from your local auto parts store, or if not, you just have to buy one or borrow one from a friend. And you always replace the axle nut, even if it's relatively new. You can reuse it, but it's safer to just buy a brand new one. They're not that expensive, like $3, $5, whatever it was. It was like $4 something, $4 and change. Just buy a new axle nut, and then take it for your test drive. Make sure you're checking everything, and there you go. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. I'm also starting to publish a little bit on Rumble, so I've only got one video up there so far, but I'm going to try to put more up under the same DIY Dan or DIY Dan channel. Just look for me with the same symbol as I have on YouTube, and just trying to expand my audience. So give us a comment if you want, and I'm glad that you're here, and we'll see you next time on the DIY Dan channel.